Hi, Jamie.
Hi, I'm so excited to be on your show.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be in your beautiful space that you have here. This is your kind of office come filming place and experimenting with food situation.
HQ. People get very impressed when they come in here because it's kind of exciting and it's like very visceral. You can see a lot of stuff going on. But what they don't understand is there was 17 years of busking it and ducking and diving and terrible offices and, shacks. About 4 years ago we got organised, and this building is dedicated to food and writing food and the flow of content. And so, when you come in, you can't help but get sucked into
It's beautiful, and it obviously smells amazing when you walk in as well. What were you cooking up there today?
So I was doing like a kind of twist on a French toast and a bread and a buttered pudding. Using up leftover panettone or croissants or brioche from like the Christmas season and just putting it in a little vanillaed egg. For that kind of custard, and then on the like doing a sandwich in the middle, just like chocolate and tin peaches. Ooh. And it's like the simplest dessert ever. And if you drop it, if you rip it, if you tear it, if you do it badly, if you've got half panettone and half, it's the most forgiving recipes, and they're the recipes that I always love. When I sometimes I try and do them one-handed and think like if it can come out all right, then maybe
anyone can do
this. Maybe anyone can do it, yeah. So that's the vibe.
I love a tinned peach. You know what I made from your new brilliant, beautiful book together? The the tender, sticky aubergines. And I'd never cooked aubergines like that before.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you did that.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Really dreamy.
I'm so impressed. Like, aubergines is something that's baffled British people for a long time.
I think so. I mean, you have to almost use excessive amounts of oil, it seems, but not in this recipe.
No. I mean, not
at all.
No, because I think that's where we got it confused. It's like quite a lot of recipes, genuinely use a lot of oil to fry it, diced or sliced. But that's like just the tip of the iceberg. Like if you steam them and then fry them, then you get this kind of curdy, kind of buttery, fleshy gorgeousness.
Oh, they're the best.
And then you can get crispy skin that's just kind of like its own version of crackling. But yeah, like I used to actually people probably don't know. I used to have a restaurant in Japan for 3 years. And so I used to work over there and love it. And the things that they did with vegetables in general, but aubergines particularly, was mind-blowing. And so I that's a nice thing about learning to cook. You can kind of go to countries, just see techniques, not even necessarily the flavours, but you can bring certain techniques home and then mix it with, toad in the hole.
Yeah, love
or something that you grew up with, and you can just sort of... But well done.
Yeah, it was gorgeous. And it's such a beautiful book. It really reminds me of your Christmas book in the fact that it's a cosy book. Yeah. It feels really sort of nurturing. And I think I've told you this before, but your Christmas book, which I spy on a shelf there, is one of my all-time favourite cookbooks. I've made so many things from it. I love the leftover section. I've made the trifle several times.
And there's a potato chapter.
There's a potato chapter. But this has that same feeling. It's really cosy. And I don't know what your thinking was behind it, but it seems like it's sort of a reaction to what we've just been through, which is, loneliness and being apart. And now this is a time to be together. And of course, eating is one of the best ways to do that in the most comforting sense, to make a ceremony out of it, to have ritual with other people that you love. It's so important.
No, it was. And I think like comparing it to the Christmas book is probably the best comparison, actually. I think the beautiful thing about food, which... when you think about it, is like the beautiful thing of music or theatre or even clothes, right? Its context is everything. And I think that, some of the work that I do, TV and books, is like solution-based. And, so creating clarity you can do in many ways. And for this was, I think, much deeper. It was much more emotional. It was much more... And also amplified and concentrated via COVID.
Yeah.
For everyone, no matter where they come from, no matter what their backgrounds, to be told that they can't see their family when you really most wanted them, or celebrate, their or kids' poignant moments in their life when they can't. That was a tough one for all of us. And normally when you're doing interviews or talking to journalists or bits and pieces like that, like you're trying to kind of paint a picture of like your perspective because it's quite unique. But of course, we all had this together.
Yeah.
So together... I think means something different than it did 2 years ago. I think the idea of the book actually, and it sounds simple, but actually deeply embedded in every page and every word and every sentence is, I realised that the food was just a supporting act to getting together and to sit next to each other, to laugh to, you know, all those screens and masks. Like, no, like just to be human. So the food is just a supporting act to that. So then when I wrote it, it's all about making the recipes as simple as possible so you can get ahead. Yeah. So you'll notice as you flick through, it's like a lot of the prep happens either in the morning or the day before, so that when your mates turn up, it's fun time. You can just smash it.
Yeah, we don't want stressful dinner parties.
Yeah,
we want,
because we've all done it, right? Even chefs, by the way, even chefs
really,
that can cook. Yeah, because I think part of the success of your night with your friends or family or whatever the gig is picking the right meal for the right occasion. It doesn't matter how good it is. Yeah. If you pick the wrong meal and it hasn't got the right sort of vibe, then it's gonna distress the whole thing, and you know, it's just not going to work out very well.
You know, like you were just saying there, screens and masks. You know, I was reading a book about loneliness recently by, I'm pretty sure it was Narina Hertz who wrote this book about loneliness, and saying that we've built these kind of, and this isn't just due to the pandemic, this is prior to that, we've built these kind of like isolating cocoons where we have like a hood or a hat, sunglasses, headphones in, now also perhaps a mask as well. Yeah. You don't have to actually have interaction with the person that you're buying the coffee off or the person at the school gates or whatever. We're so isolated. So I love that this book is the antithesis of that. It's be with people you love. Look them in the eye, talk to them. Let food be part of it. It'll be a celebration. But we need that now, like more than we ever have.
It's very human. And I was having this chat with Jules the other day, and I was watching her phone pinging and the light going up, and as a parent, as a mother, as, you know, like trying to maintain like being a good partner, being a good parent, being a good friend, really and then your greater family. That's a lot going on. And then there's work. It's like, okay, like ping, 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 ping. I'm like, babe, we are so in contact. Like we are so, there's too much. Yeah. Like so you've kind of got this over communication, but it's through the veil of technology, which is beautiful, but just not human.
No.
And I think that food has always been about feeding humanity, and I'm pretty sure that most things can be fixed over a meal. Yeah. I really mean that. Even when we did Friday night feasts, which we did together.
Yeah, I love doing that.
Like we've both done a lot of interviews, but I know that we had a different interview because we were cooking. Yeah. And whether it was Usain Bolt or you or, you know, whoever came on the show, like it's just a very warm, sincere place. And the interesting thing as well is I think that cooks around the country are a dying breed. Like I'm not under the kind of misconception that we're amplifying cooks. I mean, I'm trying to desperately, but you got to remember the digital revolution. Yeah. That pinging that my wife is getting, that's making it's never been easier to order a takeaway. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know. I mean, I think people are just beginning to work out that it's even the cheap ones are really expensive. Like how do they? I mean, it's so expensive. Yeah. And we're not learning to cook at home, really, in general, like the old school. And then school's not delivering on the promise that they should. So like we're in this kind of slightly weird world. And look, don't get me wrong, the medium of a book is still secondhand. And then apps and videos and all of that. So like because we run centres, Ministry of Food centres around the country, which is always local people helping local people, skin on skin. Like that's a powerful thing. You know, we take people on, you know, benefits or people that are vulnerable. We take them around the community, show them how to shop, how to budget, how to cook. It's probably one of the most beautiful things that I do, but also like this, there is the fallacy. I mean, it exists if you look at it the way you want to look at it, but the fallacy that you have to be rich to eat well. So it's actually quite a British thing, by the way. Yeah, it's a very British thing. Like if I go to Portugal, into a poor area, Italy, Spain, Costa Rica, East LA, you can see the most incredible food in those areas. So that whole twist in the tale about like, where's the currency? Is it cash or is it knowledge?
And I guess those places that you're naming, they're really deep rooted in history, and the cuisine is culturally attached to that history, and it's gone through generations of grandparents to you know, younger
with the
kids.
Exception of East LA, which I think has been hit over the head by sort of convenience, which is, but certainly the ones that have those roots. And again, that's really super connected with history. Like, you know, Britain, many countries had their moment, the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire, you know, even the Portuguese. But our Industrial Revolution was the timing of it and the technology and when and how and the British Empire Like, that's why we lost our roots so much quicker than Europe, because we were like Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Like, they were like way behind. So we quickly down tools, men and women, and kind of started working in different ways, and our food industrialized and brands were created. And then as we, when technology comes out of any kind, there's always a leveling out, and we learn from mistakes and stuff like that. And then by the time the French and the Portuguese were kind of coming up, they were still able to kind of hold on to those precious cheeses and cured meats and all those lovely, do you know what I mean? So I think like, of course at the time that we would have been so proud of being like the top of the game, but yeah, I mean, there's always light and shade, right? But
it's so important, the work that you're doing, and you've always, you've done this. I guess that's sort of the moment for you, I think, is when you were 26, where, you'd obviously had great success with The Naked Chef, and you could have then taken a very easy route of, keep doing TV, keep earning money, and, play it easy. But you didn't at that point. That's the moment where you decided to use this passion that you've just talked about of having other people with you face to face, inspiring them, teaching them. And you created 15, the restaurant, which I was lucky enough to go to back in the day. A beautiful concept, taking people from disadvantaged backgrounds, kids that had faced great adversity, and training them up to then work in this beautiful restaurant. And you didn't have to do that. That was obviously something that came from deep within you, a deep passion. What was driving you at that first sort of point to start in, I guess, activism in a way?
Yeah, I think it was the beginning of activism. And I think it was publishing that sort of grounded me, actually. Because in days like now, where a lot of people are kind of measured on votes or likes or comments, or you know what I mean? And they're all free, so they really don't mean anything.
No.
So a book sale is like old fashioned. It's like 15 quid or 20 quid, or, so you can get lucky once or twice, but getting onto the third or the fourth, like, that's a different ball game. So I really quickly knew who my boss was. Ironically, like, I'd gone from being skint to having money, which was but only gifted to me by the public. So that actually sat really unusually with me. And at the time, a lot of people didn't believe me. But it really did. And my kind of actions speak louder than words moment was, do you know what, I'm going to set up. And it wasn't, I didn't have a disadvantaged background, but I struggled badly at school. So I knew how that could be a bit of a shade on getting out there and building, CVs and getting jobs. So I put everything that I had into 15. And my dad didn't agree with it. Because he didn't understand, he'd only ever made a hard pound anyway. So he didn't understand what the hell was happening with his son. But also didn't believe, charity starts at home, It's it was quite, so he wasn't, but I had this feeling in my tummy that it was a journey, like a really exciting thing. And I always say, I wanted to, so I did. And it was a blend of being stupid and romantic and young and naive. I don't know if the same Jamie 10 years later would have done it, because I might have been more measured. But I was just stupid enough and just wealthy enough to put everything into it. And also, what a lot of people might not know is, halfway through that project, I was technically bankrupt. And it was only a cheque from Penguin, which was like once every 6 months or whatever, that saved my ass. And also, the programme that you saw about it wasn't even commissioned. I'd been fired from the BBC because I'd worked on Say No's advert. I said Say No's because, but it probably don't matter because it's a podcast, is it? So, but you know what I'm talking about. I'm so professional. But no, I don't, because they didn't like me doing the adverts.
Right.
And they didn't really have the justification to stop me doing it. And they wouldn't give me the rules to not do it. But they just didn't want me to do it, which of course is not right. So they basically fired me. And they asked, before they fired me, they said, well, we'll commission you to do this show about 15, but you have to, indemnify it. So it was like a £1.2 million budget, which I didn't have. And I think I was the first talent in British history to ever been asked to personally indemnify a programme.
Wow.
And I said fine, because again, I was young enough and stupid enough. I will indemnify it. What's the rules? And they wouldn't give them to me. It was subjective. I'm like, so you want me to personally indemnify something that is subjective to a bunch of crusties? What's going on? So they fired me. So I had no commissioner. So there was definitely a moment of build it and they shall come, because then slowly but surely Channel 4 came on board, and I was with them for 17 years.
And also the restaurant was a huge success. So, young and stupid enough maybe, but you did it.
It's still one of the best things I've ever done.
Yeah, I bet.
And I think it shaped my without sounding too romantic, it shaped my heart to be open. And I think like people always judge you on you now, but what they don't realise is, and I talk about us both because we have jobs where we're allowed to see things that most normal people wouldn't see because we get sent places or we have to investigate places or we meet people for good reason. And like when you meet these people, they change you, and it's as simple as that. Like you're like if you believe in their values or morals or the mission or their accomplishments, like so. I'm not the person I was 20 years ago. Like I was enthusiastic. I love food. I love to cook. But of course, as we all know, cooking can have 25,000 gears. And whether it's the Together book that's like Christmas or 5 ingredients, which is like 15-minute meals, like they're nothing like each other. Yeah, like those kids definitely change. I still speak to 15 students to this day.
I would have met Kerry Ann, wouldn't I? Because she was on the pier. Yeah. She's amazing. Yeah. Well, and it obviously, has never left you that feeling. And although you say, you may have changed your outlook and how you go about things, that sort of bedrock of you wanting to do good has never gone away. And you've done so many brilliant things now that have been hugely beneficial. None of them easy, though. Moving into the territory of trying to change the food in schools and getting rid of food that has low nutritional content, which is obviously, again, we've watched all this play out on TV. Great highs, great lows. And it seems like that is such a theme of your life. You've got a big life and you have big highs and big lows. Yeah. And there's a lot of risk involved, I guess, as well. Would you say that is just part of your personality?
Maybe not.
Really?
No, because I can go out and do some jazz hands and sort of like have a laugh, but there's a lot of parts of me that are quite shy, believe it or not. Maybe not shy in a conventional sense, but like quiet. I like quiet. When you do campaigns, it's always rough.
Yeah.
Always.
Why do you do it then? If it's
I honestly don't really want to do it.
Right.
I do it because I listen hard to the public, and they want me to do it because they have no way. Everyone feels like their vote doesn't count.
Yeah.
Everyone feels that their opinion can't make a change, and because really of the books, because of the vote of the pound. Honestly, because it's not fake. When I listen, they want me to do it, so I do it. And if they say jump, I jump. Literally, it's as simple as that. And every time I get a bit I can't do it because I honestly do hate it.
I bet.
It's like when I was in Greenwich doing school dinners, that was 18 of the darkest months of my life, other than when I lost my restaurants.
Yeah.
Right? So that was tough. But I knew every day that it was one of the most important things I've ever done. But the public kind of pep you up. Just when you're sort of like, I don't need this. I don't need this. And then you get a little message and it's like, no, we need you. It is absolute, we don't buy the book for free. It's like, there's a cost, and this is the cost. So in a way, the public helped me be brave, and they helped me be the person that honestly, sincerely, and I feel it running through. I'm broad-shouldered, but there's nothing pleasurable about facilitating the concept of change.
No. It's always going to be a rough ride because you're challenging historic systems that have been in place
even if you're
for a long time.
Even if you're right.
Even if you're right.
And even if all the good guys are behind you.
Yeah.
All it does is literally, it's like putting a load of aggro amongst all the press. Mm-hmm. So everything kind of gets very, how can I say, overstimulated. But do you know what? I think it's definitely defined me. I think it's made me a better person, but also there's so much to be done. So literally since school dinners, which is 15 years ago, I've had 3 people on it ever since. They're right over there, and on your way out, I will say, meet Kath, meet Ollie. They're talking to corporate CEOs. They're talking to heads of government on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
And it's really funny, all the things that are most acutely important on child health, because that's really what we do.
Yeah.
Behind the scenes, it's all about child health. The stuff that's really important, that doesn't mean you do that next, because what the public are ready for, what the press are ready for, what the government are ready for, and what logic and science tells us are all at these different sort of ebbs and flows. And you got to kind of wait for these moments where you can do one. Yeah. And you might not get the next one unless you do that one.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I mean,
it's full on, isn't it? And it's really interesting hearing you talk because
it's probably a third of my time.
I'm sure,
and definitely a third of my brain space.
Yeah, and I'm sure at times it's been all consuming, and like you're saying, you know, deeply important but not easy. And I think often we think the bits of life that are so important are going to be exciting, pleasurable, fireworks, but it's so brilliant to hear you say, no, these are seriously important things. I don't always like doing them, but it's important. And it's that kind of inner whisper that you can't ignore. Like once you've started learning about something, or you know there's a demand for something, that whisper just gets louder and louder, and that's it then. You're on the trail.
I've kind of got to the point now where if I do a job and I think I've done a really good job, I'm like, damn, that was like a fine job. Like, damn, like I think like everything worked. And in the back of my mind, my brain's going, but you didn't feel any pain. It wasn't like, how can it be good if there's been no pain? Like it's almost like, because definitely the best work I've ever done has involved pain.
Right.
And now when something goes really well, it's like, is that because we're professional? Or maybe it's not as good as I think it is. But yeah, I mean, I think definitely as a dad, and a dad of teenage girls, it's really hard to teach that failure is the most precious commodity. Like, that shapes you. That creates a memory in your brain that sticks. Like, just coasting stuff is nothing. Mm-hmm. And, like, so it's really hard to teach that. And I've probably not succeeded in teaching that, unless it's gone in, but not just...
Yeah, you are, because you're doing it.
Well, I'm trying, but like...
By example, you're doing
putting currency around failure. Like it's a very British thing to be sort of failure's failure. And I'm like, I don't know. I think even my biggest failures, and I've had quite a few, have carried incredible value and merit. And they, if it changes you in a positive way from then onwards, then I think you can take it as a positive.
Well, yeah, because it's probably harder today, more so than ever, to encourage people to take risks, first of all, because that's how you're going to possibly fail or succeed, but to take risks, to have those variables in place, because cancel culture exists. And we've covered this on many other episodes, but I find it baffling that such a thing exists and that we don't give people a second chance, whether it's people in the public eye or in our lives, that there isn't that wiggle room to fuck up a bit and then try again. Like, that's obviously the whole point of life, but we're sort of diminishing that space, and it's really dangerous. So I think it is a hard job to teach our kids that, because society and culture tells us that everything's meant to be shiny and perfect. Have there ever been moments where you've experienced failure and thought, I don't want to try again, I haven't got it in me, I'm too tired?
Every time.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like English mustard. Do you know what I mean? Like, you have just too much. It goes right up your hooter. And you're like, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. But I love you and I'll have another bit. And then the second bite goes. And it's like the time when you're hugging the toilet because you've drunk way too much tequila. Yeah. And you go, alcohol, you are the devil. Yeah. I will never see you again. You've taken over my body and I hate you with every ounce. Water, I love you so much. Yeah. You can refresh my body and everything is pure about you. I love you, water, more than life itself. And then 36 hours later, would you like a glass of wine? Yes, please. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'll take you. Yeah. What
is wrong with this? I've had that where I don't drink so much anymore, but in my 20s, obviously, I could put it away. And I would...
I can vouch for that.
Yeah, and I would have a big night. And the next day I'd be thinking, I need to do some charity work. I'm going to call my nan. I'd want to try and like redeem myself. Guilt. Yeah, like proper booze guilt. Awful, awful.
At least you grew out of it.
I really did. If I have like an inch of alcohol, I'm done. It's embarrassing now.
I mean, I wouldn't say I've got a drink problem, and I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but definitely COVID, I have treated alcohol with respect, but as a different type of, like, how is it possible that at 5:30 you go, oh, I think it's time for a little cocktail?
Yeah, why not?
It's 5:30. I mean, normally it'll be 7 o'clock on a Friday, but no, every night.
Every night.
7 days a week.
It's a comforter.
Just take the edge off. Yeah, where's Jules, where's my medicine?
What is your tipple of choice? What were you going for at 5:30?
Well, I went through a phase of adoring and adorning the Negroni.
Oh, I love a Negroni.
Which, for anyone that doesn't know what a Negroni is, it's vermouth, it's gin and Campari on ice, twists of orange. It's essentially 3 shots.
Yeah.
So the scientifically proven theory is nothing good happens after 3,
right?
Which is 9 shots. And just thought I'd do basic maths. I'm just trying to show you that I'm clever.
You're so clever.
3 plus 3 plus 3. That's not well done, Jamie. You've really done ever so well. Although I probably couldn't do that sum after 3 Negronis. No, but I loved it so much. It's got sweetness and bitterness and depth of flavour. But then something weird happened where my body has gone.
Oh really?
Yeah,
Reject
I can't drink it anymore. Right. Like, I love it.
Yeah.
If I drink it now, and I've got it down to some of the botanicals in the Campari, I'm crunched up on the floor.
Wow.
For like 15 minutes, like pain, and then I'm back up again, and then I'd have another go, and no, back on the floor again. I'm like, so
when
now
will I learn?
Yeah, no, but it's definitely something in that.
Right, Campari's like Marmite, isn't it? My parents love it, so naturally I adore it. But my husband, who does not drink anymore, used to just look at me like how it's like drinking sort of mouthwash.
Bitters. I think like it is bitter is an interesting flavour, and if it's balanced with fragrance and sweetness, it's a really, really interesting taste.
I love it.
But a lot of obviously modern food industry has hardly any bitter in it.
No, I can't think of many. No, I'm all.
We've kind of we've edited it out because sort of sweet and sour sells really high volumes of things. And put a bit of fat in there and you're bingo, bango, bongo, you know. But bitter's not,
Everything that you've achieved and all of this activism that you've done that I'm deeply fascinated about, and the pain that you've endured because of a lot of this. And with every project that you've done, whether it's a book or 15 or whatever else you were doing, it seems like you have an innate desire to push yourself or push your own boundaries. Do you think that is, again, that's how you're wired?
Yeah, I'm definitely quite romantically tuned in to hope. And it thrills me every day to fantasize about how I think anyone can do anything if they put their mind to it. And I also think that I embody that. Honestly, and I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm like, dude, if I can do, like, you know, I was in special needs all of my secondary school life in school. You know, like, how can that kid be a published author?
The second most biggest selling in the UK published author behind J.K. Rowling.
Yeah, I mean, like, how is that possible? So and then I think, like, through 15 and through, I don't know if you knew this, but when I wrote Superfood, which is about 6-7 years ago, I went back to school. So it's weird because I had a bad relationship with school just because I wasn't able to flourish, because it's a system, and if you're dyslexic and you struggle, then you don't quite fit in the system, so you're kind of a problem, not an asset. So it took me 10 years to get the chip off my shoulder of school. I loved school, by the way, but like, I hated words, I hated reading, I hated spelling. I wrote my first 3 cookbooks on a dictaphone. And I guess that helped me find my voice in a way, but it was a chip on my shoulder, I think. And then every book that came out, I kind of felt a bit more confident. And I went back to school, so I went and studied nutrition for 2 years. So that part of me allowed to study public life and health, and particularly my fascination is child health and pregnant women. So I think that through 15 and through that and through the campaigning work that I do, it becomes more, the romance and hope that is in there becomes more poignant, because you start sort of learning a bit about politics and GDP and Britain as a country, and how do you not just you thrive or your street thrive or your town thrive, but how does the country thrive? And it always comes back to the same thing with me, which is like we are defined by how bad is. So like how bad's bad in Britain, and it's a moving target, by the way. But what's interesting with the COVID mortality rates and the poverty rates and obesity rates is they all track. It's the same map. So then that concept of hope in my funny little body and cooking, everything starts taking on a slightly different, weirder. I mean, obviously I edit all this before it goes on telly, but you're getting sort of raw, sort of slosh that people don't really normally talk about with me. But so what's the point I'm making? I'm fascinated and I remain hopeful that our poorest communities need to be helped to help themselves to get out of. The system says that anyone can come from anywhere and go wherever they want, right? That's Britain, that's democracy, that's civilization, that's what we've bought into. But the reality is, invisibly, you can call it constructive racism or a million other things, but like essentially there is a ceiling. And people that live in those areas often die in those areas, and their kids grow up in those areas. And it's quite, you know, you've got the tale of two towns. Like, it fascinates me, like how 1 mile can show lower educational attainment, higher obesity, less pay, more absenteeism, more illness, higher cost to society through the NHS, and earlier mortality, 7 to 11 years, right? And that's a mile away. And then in a very unintelligent way, you can go, but they've got 33 chicken shops and they've got none. Like, you start looking at it like that, and I think that's where, you know, so often, I mean, often really clever people do the data and the truth and the logic and the science, and then you need a bit of a knob end like me to go, but you got 33 chicken shops over there. It's like, no shit, Sherlock. And it's like, I've actually, so maybe I can be a mediator between the two worlds. Maybe that's my job.
Well, also you have a huge well of creativity, and creativity is behind all of these beautiful projects. Is putting together all this collation of data or whatever it is in science and going, oh, we can work towards some change here. It's not going to be easy. Do you sometimes resent having to take on that huge task? Not many other people do.
Well, it's voluntary. It's voluntary. I could give it all up, but I. But
now you know too much, so you kind of can't.
See, and there lies the struggle with the concept of caring. Like, if you're listening to this, and like, the minute you say, I care about that sincerely, like, life changes from that second, because then the things in and around that and that cascade off of that matter. And once it matters, then you're in an internal conflict from that day onwards. And it's the right way, because caring is beautiful and it's the right human thing to do. But it just means that your life, you've just put 30% more stress on your life. Ignorance is bliss, by the way. I mean, they didn't say that for nothing. So I think, I mean, I think from my point of view, I don't know, there's such a lot that I'd like to get done. And sometimes it feels hopeless. But I also think that the British public are kind of amazing. If you give them good, clear information, they often make great choices. Like, it's not the Wild West. They're not dumb. Like if you give them good, clear information, they often make good choices. So then stop lying. Start, you know, give them clarity. Storytelling and actually the things that we both do, and others, of course. And like, they need like help. They need the modern day mum and dad need different things to 20 years ago.
And kids, and, you know, teaching kids in a different way. I think, you know, teaching them about food and nutrition and just the importance of it, and school sort of changing a bit. And, you know, I certainly didn't do well at school. I think I came out with 6 past GCSEs by the end of it, because I was already working and my head was not in school. I was not an academic person. And I think we do need to sort of shake up the system in that way. And that's definitely how I've sort of seen you from afar, but also seen you work up close. You know, you shake shit up. That's kind of what you do. You're a positive disruptor.
Yeah, I mean, look, my dad always taught me to actions speak louder than words. And I think you just got to, like, crack on. And certainly, like, you know, even if you walk through this building, we're a B Corp now, which might not mean anything to some people listening, but that essentially what I was trying to do myself in my business and create this sort of social business that had these sort of, you know, archeries of care throughout, you know, so if we're going to sell something, how does it help the story? How does it improve something? We shouldn't be selling anything that doesn't make it better. So, you know, with the exception of laughter, you know, basically we got to be like pushing the boundaries here. So I struggled with that for about 15 years. And a B Corp, basically, it's like the tax man coming in and they look at your books, but they go through all your drawers, all your sort of special drawers. It's
rigorous, isn't it? It's like
years, right? Yeah, they interview. It's hard to get, but we came in like nearly 2 years ago, give or take. But it's been really helpful to me because it aligns the whole company And it's about values, and it's about impact on the planet. It's about supply chains. It's about how you treat your staff. It's about what you promise you do, and do you do it?
Yeah.
And it's voluntary, obviously. You don't normally want to hand over. I mean, they get like 10 times the information the tax man gets. It's kind of like it's not perfect, but it's the best we got. And I would encourage any business to have a go. But yeah, I've found that really helpful to aligning all of my teams to try and be commercial because we got bills to pay, but make sure that there's real consistency of care and thoughtfulness through that. And yeah, I mean, that lives not just within products. I mean, I don't really need it because I'm sort of in it, but it would be impossible for me. Like for instance, like, all right, so a few years ago, I did my veg cookbook.
Yeah.
That took me 9 years to get that away.
Wow.
Right. And finally we got it away. And bless, it's like the best-selling veg cookbook in history, which is fantastic. That was, of course, that was the intention.
Yeah.
It took 9 years to get that away. But what no one knows is that every book I've ever written has had 65% veggie recipes in. Do you know what I mean? You don't need a whole book. Like, it's throughout it's like being the large, but of course, it's just a way of looking at it. But like now, like through being a B Corp, we wouldn't be allowed to do too many meat recipes.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be allowed.
No.
And we wouldn't be allowed to have just indulgent recipes. So it's a bit that, I guess it's about walking the walk and talking the talk. And I quite like that because even before we came a B Corp, which I know too much of the good stuff that I had done was luck. Not luck through lack of intention. There was always an intention, but like, oh my God, that wouldn't have happened if you weren't there on that day. And there's just like, so I think what's really good about this is like giving yourself, you know, as a group, these things that hopefully make us do better and better. And we'll see in 10 years' time if we're still here, then it works, and if not, then
of course you will be.
Then I'll say, well, that didn't work. But,
of course you will be. But it's funny because each new chapter for you, I know there's always a sort of a thread of this passion behind them all, but looking through all of these chapters, you know, as I've said several times now, you're not picking the easy route. To do good things, to be kind, like let's go back to basics, back to simple things. To be kind, to help other people, to do something good takes way more effort, way more energy, potentially adds more stress. And it's making me think of Tara Brach. I read one of her books and she put this really beautiful sentiment in the book saying, I don't know if it was hers or not, but every day you have to swerve off your own path to be kind, because otherwise we would just be single-minded, doing our thing, taking the easy route. And it seems like that's kind of your maybe unspoken daily mission, is to swerve off your own path and to do things that are good, that are right, that are kind. So yeah. I'm imagining, as stressful as it can be, that just feels good to you too.
Yeah, look, I think I agree with all that. I think like my version of that is, look, I think I'm pretty kind. I'm still flawed like most. I definitely work hard every morning when I get up at the crack of dawn and look in the mirror and go, bloody hell, who's that? Oh, Christ. Okay, you're going to be happy today, or you're going to be a miserable bastard.
Yeah.
You're going to be optimistic today or a miserable bastard. Like, you're going to try hard, you know. So that always helps. I mean,
yeah.
I generally speaking, not always, but I think it's a choice whether you're bubbly and glass half full or not. And I work hard at that. I think on the kindness thing, yeah, look, I try to apply kindness. I think kindness comes in different flavors. It comes in how you do things, or what you do, or the way you do things, or what happens after you do something. But also, I think, you know, the most magic thing of kindness is if you work with like-minded people, then you all benefit from the halo effect of amplified kindness. Like I'm no bloody star or angel, you know. I do a good job, but the fact that I employ people that are often better at me, and that when I have a shit day and I don't feel quite as kind as I should be, like, they're kind. And then it makes me less of an asshole. So, do you know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's
yeah.
like...
you've got the right people around.
We have, never by intention, never, ever by intention, but my team, we're 150 here now, you know, started with 20 years ago. We've been about 85% women the whole journey. So I think that quite a lot of the way that we do things, I'm not saying it's the way everyone should do it, but quite a lot of what we do is quite a female, maternal thoughtfulness. and hopefully what my strange version of masculinity gives. I mean, I also know as a boss of mainly women, like that I've tried to tune that art of trying to be a good boss of women for certainly the last 10 years, and it's definitely not one size fits all, especially not in the modern day era. And by the way, I think that the modern day woman has got it much harder than men. Absolutely, without question. Like, you know, there's still chemically, like, being a hardworking mum and trying to juggle kids if they're in the equation. That's really, really hard. So I think, interestingly, as a boss and as in the workplace, that's been fascinating. But also, and I don't know if people talk about it enough, but like, they need the masculine in the workplace. Do you know what I mean? Like the yin and the yang of it all, I think is really good. But definitely nothing good I've ever done has ever come without a lot of care culture from my female team here. There's nothing good. No award, no prize, no achievement have I ever done hasn't because there's been like good women in. Because the thing about my girls, right, is they would work 7 days a week for me. They really would. That they really, really would. And I don't ask them to, but sometimes they have to. But at the same time, they can turn up when they want. They can go when they like. They don't have to work. Even before COVID, they could work from home on Mondays and Fridays. Why? Because women don't need to be told to be somewhere 9 to 5 to get the job done. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a job, we'll somehow get it done. Like, I'm trying to learn multitasking, but it seems like you lot are really good.
We're quite really good at it. Lately,
like,
yeah.
I wish I could learn it, but I think, I mean, I definitely... I feel that. So we're quite a maternal business, and we have quite a lot of parents here. Even, you know, like most businesses are trying to get their kind of stuff better for women in the workplace. It's like, actually what I realised a few years ago is it was the boys. The boys were getting, I had to really look at paternity and sort of say, actually, this is terrible. Like, I'm really, the men are not being given, like, so we had to balance that up a little bit. But, yeah.
It's so good. And, you know, being a boss comes with its stresses anyway, especially with a big team like that. And you've had such a roller coaster over the years, and the pain that you've talked of losing your restaurants and having to deal with your team in that way. How do you cope with that level of stress? Are you good at managing it?
Yeah, no, I'm like, I think, again, like, even like back in the day with 15, like, just being really, really honest. Like, I got my veins of intelligence that I have, like, but like, I was definitely stupid enough to do 15. Like, there was naivety, or I don't know what it was, but like, without that, and basically what I'm saying as well is like, being naive or like not or green or whatever you want to call it, like, it made me look at being young differently, because if that Jamie did it and it's the best thing I've ever done, and that Jamie wouldn't 10 years later, then, well, what's better? So like, it's like, damn, like, you know, because being well-behaved and conservative and controlled and measured, like, well, maybe that wasn't what changed the dial a little bit. And I think for me with stress, like, I'm unbelievably good at bubbling stuff. So like tasks, lots of different jobs in this business, very, very spread out. So bubble, bubble, bubble. And then when there's fires going off and it's all hell's breaking loose, I could bubble it. Like, unbelievable talent. I mean, for people that suffer with stress, they're like, you lucky bastard. How do you do that? So but I think ultimately it's got to get out.
Yeah.
You can't be good at something.
Feeling stressed.
Yeah, I mean.
So how are you ridding yourself of that stress?
I think I had a kidney stone and 2 slipped discs and lived in pain for a year or 2 years, and probably, you know, for someone that's very optimistic and very bubbly, which I can credit myself with most of the time, I probably got a bit flat, you know, which is sort of a shame. And this lot need me to be bubbly, because that's what pumps them up. And so, but I think actually my stress came out through like illness, really. Yeah. And I really do. I know,
it does.
You slipped a disc. Oh, that's your emotions. And people go, yeah, no, it's just slipped a disc. But I actually think, I agree. I think there's a lot of chemistry going on in there. And if you can't cry or let it out, then some shit's going to go on. Yep. And so I feel like probably from 40 to 44 was probably my darkest time, I think, probably. And then from lockdown to here, although lockdown was hideous in so many ways, like it was a kind of moment to sort of reimagine, rethink, recuperate, reignite, be grateful, think about the future. You know, the value of a year. It's Christmas again. I mean, for the love of God, what happened?
For God's sake, I know
so it's
how.
like, look, you know, and then sort of, then like all the good stuff, right? So I mean, this isn't a cheesy bridge back to the book, by the way, but the book together, the subtitle is Memorable Meals Made Easy. Like the currency is memories, not the food. It's the memories. The food's just there to like underline the moment, you know. So the taste of the food, but how you serve it, the fact that bit happens at the table and it's quick and it's sort of like changes the conversation, and you know, like the cocktail that loosens everyone. Like, so I think that's a gear. I mean, it's not everything in food, but it's definitely a poignant gear. And I think certainly, well, forever, but certainly in the next 2 years, as people, my missus doesn't want to go to busy restaurants now. She doesn't. No way.
Yeah.
Like, she's you know, she's sensitive to, she's just not. So, and I think there's lots of people like that.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that you can have mum and dad or your best friend come round and you can have 6 people, 8 people round for dinner, and you know, it'll be half the price of a restaurant meal and you can smash it. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And so in a weird kind of way, it's kind of bring back the Great British Dinner Party.
And also, I think for people to do something with their hands and have that sort of catharsis of cooking. You obviously cook relentlessly when you're here at the office and all the work projects that you're conducting, but do you still find it relaxing? Is it still a lovely, pleasurable activity for you?
I think it can be whatever you want it to be.
Right.
And I think if you allow it to be chaotic, then it's either because you haven't invested in some really simple skills, which are really simple, or you just haven't invested in just 5 minutes a week of organising the thing you spend the second largest amount of money on in your life after your mortgage, right? It's your weekly shop. And basket data, which doesn't lie, says that you, and that's you listening right now, like your basket data is the same every week, bar 4%. And if it's more than 4%, then you're askew.
Yeah.
But you average out of 4%. Like we buy the same stuff week in, week out.
Yeah, I'm annoyed at myself for doing that.
So it's kind of like, so there's a few sort of things in my life that sort of made radical difference. One is sort of sit down and plan, and like the Christmas is the perfect example for that, right? You sit down, you plan it, and just that 5 minutes, surely it's worth it. Well, I know it's worth it because it's the second largest amount of money you spend, right? So from saving money, and next year, everyone's going to have to save money, right? Because it's going to get tough. Everything's going to go up, and probably pay rises are not going to happen, and it's going to get tricky next year. So if you can save 5% of your shopping bill, 10%, you can do that without compromise by being clever, and just but then nutritionally, the same. So like, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of like, you know, balance up the week. Oh, that you've got a bit too much of that. Oh, we'll just swing in a bit of that. I think next year I've got to work a little bit harder. We're trying to do some things, actually. We're launching the thing in January, which is sort of like, it's kind of like it's kind of a hybrid of a planner. It's a community of cooks planning, inspiring hacks, tricks, shortcuts. If you want to come and have a play on it,
that sounds amazing.
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work or not, but basically that's going to become like the heart of this whole building. And the point I'm trying to do is like the expert that I've got in nutrition, and there's 3 of them, like some of the best in the country, like we're all going to be on service to this little club. So we're going to try and work really hard for these people, and maybe it will work. And it's really weird as well, like without trying to get like campaigny again, like if people are questioning care and voting and can they make a difference, the most powerful vote ever is what you spend your cash on. So just by swinging from one to the other, look, and I'm not saying that there's always a light and a shade and a right and a wrong, but let's just take, say, I don't know, like organic milk over regular milk. Like it's the easiest, cheapest trade up. Mm-hmm. It really is. Yeah. The last time I checked, it was like 10 pence. Mm-hmm. You know, but it's marginal. and the system that you're supporting is radically different.
And it's so important that we start understanding that difference, because I think a lot of the time we don't. We're, like you say, ignorance is bliss. We're just going, "Oh, it doesn't make a difference." But an environmental tip, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah, no, I think so. That it's interesting that conversation about health, that conversation about environment, and like I kind of always knew it, but basically it's the same thing.
It is, yeah.
Like essentially what the planet needs and what we need is more plants, fruit, nuts, and seeds, and good, thoughtful farming and husbandry. And then the other thing, what was the other thing? It was sleep.
Oh,
so
God. How's that going?
So well, one thing was planning, 5 minutes to plan. The other one is switch the I guess the lens of how you view sleep. That was a radical.
So have
change.
you done that? Were you not sleeping and now you're sleeping well?
So yeah, I mean, basically, when I went back to study nutrition, I was also able to meet one of the best sleep scientists in the country, and he blew my mind. A guy called Jason. He's like, there's a little double-page spread in that book that just like sums up the top end of it, and it's like I was getting like 4 hours sleep a night.
Whoa!
And the phone was off the hook, and I was like answering in different countries questions and approving pictures and I think like sleep is like a huge problem for this country.
Yeah.
And then that connects into everything else, whether it's kind of how we feel, depression, health. I mean, the list is really long.
It affects everything.
Everything. I mean, there's not many functions. I don't think there's any function in the human body that isn't affected by lack of sleep or correct hydration. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, I kind of thought, well, actually, I quite enjoy work when I'm not doing campaigns. I quite enjoy work, so I'm going to treat that like a hobby, and I'm going to treat sleep, which is this weird thing that no one ever tells you about, ever, as a kid. We presume it happens like a button. There you go. Oh, sleep. Like, no, I'm going to treat sleep like work. So I set alarms for me to go to bed like a little baby.
And what does that mean? You have to turn your phone off at this point? What's your sort of sleep hygiene?
So basically, try and get in bed for 10 if I can, unless I'm doing something. Have reminders to remind me, go to bed, it's 9:45. But technology can do that. Open the window, you want a cool room. Don't have a bath or a shower before sleep.
Oh, why is that?
You don't want to raise the body temperature.
Oh, wow, that's really fucked my night up.
Yeah,
right.
And my wife. She don't listen to me, by the way. She don't listen.
Right.
But if you want the expert advice, then
I really like my bath before bed.
Yeah. Well, look, you do it an hour before, but not right before.
I'm
but
have to start getting in the bath at like 6 p.m.
Yeah. Well, look, it's all about the quality of the waves of sleep.
Right.
And if you're constantly drunk when you go to bed, that will affect the waves.
That's gone. I used to be.
Interesting one is if you're too hydrated.
Oh.
And that's not necessarily linked to wanting to go to the toilet more, which of course will happen if you drink a lot. Yeah. But my wife is so good at hydrating. But it's actually about the hydration of your blood, and then therefore how the heart pumps the blood, and then that affects the waves of the sleep.
Yeah.
So it's all about quality, and then for me, just learning that one wave kind of is placing cognitive, what you've learned, into the right place, in the right little memory bank, and slotting it in, and all right, so remember better, learn better, great, okay. And then the next one is just like devoted to sort of like health and restore and repair and essentially, if you class rogue cells as cancer, then fighting cancer, all of that stuff. So that was a big turning point in my life, because I think I was quite hurting myself at the time. Well, it's about like 7 years ago, and like it was just, I didn't even see it coming, and I think that the technology in the phones was making it much worse.
And when you're not sleeping and you're working that relentlessly, and again, I've seen you work like this from afar since the 90s when I first met you.
Yeah.
It has been relentless. When you're working to that extent and you're checking emails at God knows what hour, you're not sleeping, what's driving that? Is that because you want to succeed? Is it because you want to see change happen? What is driving you, rather than going, you know what, I'm taking my foot off the gas a bit, I'm going to pull back?
It's like in some respects, like in the working day, that's very measured and organised, and we try and get better and better at that and squeeze more and more in over the years. But then when I get home, it's sort of, I've always been quite available. I'm not like I speak to my PA. I've always been quite accessible. So I tend to get hit pretty hard when I'm home.
Yeah. For
a few hours, which can be okay and can be not okay. depending on if Jules is trying to have a conversation with me. Put your phone down. And that is the hard crack to stop, because it's, you know, it's a bit like Tetris. Do you know what I mean? Like, you kind of got all the, you know, you got a few in a row and you're just waiting for a 4-1 to come. A 4 come in, and it's sort of like, that just gets a load of crap out of your life and signed off.
Yeah, and you like your job. So this is the problem I have. I don't sometimes want to switch off. The kids go to bed and I think, oh, I can start writing that article or whatever I'm doing because I want to do it. And then you're knackered. I
think it's just trying to be a bit more restrained about it. But I tell you, like, in lockdown as well, I started... I used to be in a band years ago. I used to drum.
You're a great drummer, aren't you? Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say great, but I used to think I was great.
I think you're good, aren't you?
I could probably fake that I look great. No, I mean, I would drum for 13 years, and then in lockdown, my mum gave me this letter from my nan that was so sweet, and I think I was the only person mentioned in her will to specifically get this piano. And she goes, oh, I know Jamie's going to, you know, put it to good use. And I'm like, Mum, she's been dead like 5 years. Where's the bloody piano? And she goes, oh, it's at the pub. They love it on a Friday night. They have a little sing-along. I'm like, yeah, it's your mum's last words.
Oh,
like,
bless.
Where's the piano? So they gave me the piano, and that was just before lockdown. And then in lockdown, I started tinkling. And actually, that's been my therapy as well. So I can't play very well, by the way. But I think, again, which I think is quite an exciting thing, because the idea that you have to be great at everything to contribute is absolute rubbish. I mean, so I think really...
It's about the process as well, like you're enjoying
and
doing
the intention
it.
And...
Yeah.
So I started writing chords and chord progressions. It would literally take me 6 weeks to get one set of chord progressions. And then I worked with this guy called Toby Tripp, who is an incredible musician, but he will arrange it all for me. And we'll put it together. And we've done all the music for the last 2 series. And I have to say, that has been definitely my therapy for the last 2 years. Yeah, obviously it's a world I used to know because I was in the band for years, but it's kind of gone beyond percussion, which is lovely.
My son just, my husband just got a drum kit, which my son has discovered, shall we say.
Yeah. Hallelujah.
I don't know about it. I don't know. He had like an electric one before. That's been discarded. We've now got the proper drum kit. It's not great.
It's an amazing instrument, I have to say. And there's, you know, I got some heroes. Ash Shone, who's like the most amazing session drummer, and he's like genius. And then have you heard of Yusuf Days?
No.
So like Tom Misch and Yusuf Days did this album in lockdown that's probably one of my favourite albums.
I'll have to check that out.
It is so good. And like Yusuf Days, I've never met him, don't know him, but like, you know, when you like, this geezer oozes soul and rhythm.
Yeah.
And Tom Misch, who I'm sure you do know, he's like just this genius songwriter who does loads of stuff for other people. He does his own thing. Like, he's just writing. He's prolific, and I don't know how old he is, but I have a feeling.
Check that out.
I have a feeling he is very young and ultra talented, but their sound is quite different as well. I really like it. So, and I tell you what was really nice, just to finish that story, was so writing some chord progressions on my nanny's piano. Fast forward 2 months, and I've got an orchestra in Abbey Road, Studio 2. Which I know you would have been to.
Yes, it's the most glorious place on the planet.
And recording it in the same room that the Beatles did their thing, and just the sound of an orchestra.
Wow.
That makes you... Because when we did together the TV series, by the way, just for context, myself and Channel 4 took a punt on it because it was still illegal to have people come around their house. So we had to do all the pre-production, which I know you know is like months, right? And then we were legal by 3 days.
Whoa.
3 days. So I knew that, like... visually, the food had to mean something. Half of the guests in the series were friends and family that sincerely I hadn't been with for the whole of lockdown.
That's so nice.
And then the other half was something I'd never done before, which were complete strangers, and they were people... I put it out to social, and we had to sort of... had the hard job of picking, but essentially it was like teachers, nurses, midwives, volunteers, doctors. We had them all come around my house. That's and I just got to feed them and get them drunk and have a great time and laugh and giggle. And so when we were putting, like, I knew what the food was, and I knew the crew were badass, and I knew how we were going to film it. But then, of course, being involved in the music, it's like, of course we need an orchestra, like, because only an orchestra can make your hairs go like that. So hopefully, like I think it's in the middle of the Christmas special version of that is out. I think it'll be like mid-December.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's really a precious
I bet it
show,
is.
and hopefully it gives you some lovely ideas to cook some amazing things. But I guess more importantly, not more importantly, but hopefully it makes you feel, I don't know.
For me, it's cozy.
Cozy, hopeful.
Cozy. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous book. I loved the aubergine. I'm going to do something from it tonight. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to work something out. I'm definitely doing some of the Christmas cocktails. 100%. The cocktails in the book are beautiful. As ever, it's been so wonderful.
We could probably talk all day if we wanted to.
We would. I would have eaten all the satsumas in Quality Street, and we would have got the old Campari out, I'm sure, at some point as well. But thank you so much for today,
Pleasure.
Jamie.
Always.
So nice to see you. Bring back the Great British Dinner Party. Yes. Now, look, you know I prefer a night in, so that is a great plan for me, to be in my house, preferably in my slippers. And now I've got all these gorgeous recipes in Jamie's new book, Together, Memorable Meals Made Easy. It's a no-brainer. Jamie, thank you for inviting me to your beautiful office and test kitchen, epic event space, whatever it is. It's wonderful. I had the best time. Jamie gave a bit of a nod to us needing to be more thoughtful about our farming system during that chat. We might just be picking up on that train of thought coincidentally with next week's guest, so make sure you're back here for that by following the podcast for free on your favourite platform. Thank you so much to Jamie, to the producer Anushka Tate at Rethink Audio, and to you lovely lot. I'm going to catch you soon.